during an Olympic year, making Team USA in track and field is perhaps the hardest thing that any athlete can attempt to do. You gotta finish in the top 3 on the day of the trials, otherwise, it doesn't matter how fast you've gone the rest of the season. You will not be an Olympian. The only word I can accurately come up with to describe it is cutthroat. And the women's 100 hurdles is perhaps at the top of that list. Need I remind you, in 2016, America swept the Olympic podium in that same event, going 1, 2, and 3, but they did it without Kenny Harrison, who finished 4th at the Olympic trials and later went on to break the world record in that event just a few weeks later. And you already know who won it all this year. Her name is Masai Russell. She entered the 2024 season without a shoe contract to compete with at that moment. But she was the collegiate record holder the year before. Of course, she went on to sign with Nike before the trials, and then won the trials, and the rest is history. But she was just one of 12 American women ranked inside the top 30 of the world this season. But only 3 of them can represent at the games. They let in more than 30 women to run that same event once the games go off. And although I'm pretty sure you weren't paying attention, there was still one American woman who made the finals at the trials in the 100 hurdles, who happened to be competing unattached. That means she did not have any sponsors at all, at least not one that pays her to wear athletic gear, because Talia Bonds was there, representing as not just one of America's fastest women. The time she ran to qualify for the trials was actually top 5 in the world at the time that she ran it. But that's besides the point, because she didn't actually make Team USA. She was just there in the final. But nobody really noticed when you look over in the other lanes, and the cameras do tend to focus on whoever's out in front, especially when they're coming from the middle of the track. Whether or not we want to acknowledge it, she was there at the trials and proved that she belonged there. But it's also true that she was never really supposed to be this fast, especially not in the 100 hurdles, because years ago, Talia Bonds was a multi-event athlete. And for most of her career, if you had asked others who were competing against her, they would have assumed that the high jump was actually her best event. So the journey that led her, all the way from being an athlete that most of the big schools in D1 weren't really checking for, to now becoming one race away from the Olympic Games. She probably would have been there if she wasn't representing America in the first place. It's so ridiculous that I had to fact check myself along the way just to make sure I was getting it right, because you can't make this stuff up. And if anybody wants to invest in telling the story properly, I might have to write the screenplay to the movie myself, because her existence in the sport of track and field, specifically at the pro level, represents everything that is broken about the sport at the moment, because her versatility makes her one of the best track and field athletes that we have in the sport right now. But pro track and field isn't set up right now to showcase it. So she's going to have to wait another 4 years for a shot to make Team USA. I just hope that at least one sponsor calls between now and then, because I think she's earned at least that much. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. And I'm Coach Rob, the founder of SCArecruiting.com, where I rank the best track and field recruits across the entire nation. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, just let me know in the comment section, because I try to read them all. First things first, in order to tell a story like this one, you gotta go all the way back to the high school level if you really want to do it right. And while she was a high school senior, Talia Bonds likely would have rated as a low 4-star recruit on SCArecruiting.com at the end of that season. But that's also a bit misleading, because she was actually one of the top 5 multi-event athletes in the entire nation. But the ranking system that I do doesn't technically check for that. Don't get me wrong. All the way back then, she was a talented hurdler. She just wasn't fast enough for the big-time schools in D1 to really focus on. For that reason, she ended up at Utah State in the Mountain West Conference to continue her track career. Not to be confused with Utah, which actually competes in the Big 12 now. Interestingly enough, during her freshman season, she never finished higher than 7th place at the conference championship meet in either the hurdles or the high jump, which was her second best event, or as a multi-event athlete. I'm not making this up, indoors or outdoors. As a sophomore, she did win a medal indoors as a multi-event athlete. But outdoors, that is when she ran a huge PR in the 100 hurdles, which obviously we now know is clearly her best event. Ironically, she didn't even score at the Mountain West Championship outdoors in any event, but still qualified for the NCAA regional meet, which is a very big deal, especially when you're not competing for a power conference. And the next time we saw her on the track was 2 years later. That was in 2022, where she then competed for Arizona, which was still in the Pac-12, which makes it the Power 5. But you know what happened to that conference between then and now. And during her first season in that uniform, she won the Pac-12 conference in the 100 hurdles. In case you're wondering, she was also a very legit high jumper, with medals to back it up in D1 at that point. But as a senior, it doesn't really matter what happened at all the conference meets, because outdoors, in the 100 hurdles, she made the NCAA championship meet, and got to the final, where she would finish 4th. But if you were watching that race, you should remember who else was on the starting line. Akira Nugent of Jamaica, Grace Stark, and Masai Russell of America were all on the starting line for that collegiate championship race. And all of them came back for the 2024 Olympics and made the final. You already know what happened when Masai Russell got to the finish line. If you consider that Talia Bonds was 4th in that final, it should have been abundantly clear that she had amazing potential going into her professional career, especially when you factor in she was never a full-time hurdler the entire time. But like I said before, even Masai Russell did not sign a sponsorship deal immediately after leaving college. So apparently, nobody among the sponsors thought Talia Bonds was worth signing either. That is why she competed for the entire 2024 season as an unattached athlete. But she was there in a bunch of races that you were probably watching. You just maybe didn't notice she was there on the line while it happened. First, she was there at the USA indoor meet in the 60 hurdles. She was also there in the final. You just probably didn't notice because Tia Jones was way out in front and broke the world record in that event for that race. She was also there at the LA Grand Prix, once again competing in the final. And in Jamaica, she was running at the Racers Grand Prix, once again in the final. She won the Mount Sac Invitational, even though most people weren't paying attention. Although it is a big deal if you actually compete in the sport. And of course, she was there at the Olympic trials, where she clawed her way to the final, just one race away from making it to Team USA. The same woman who did everything I just said without a sponsor at all. The fact of the matter is that an athlete like Talia Bonds is not just Olympic caliber. She would be if she were competing for almost any other nation. She's also a very legit professional athlete because of her versatility. In a team structure, she's everything you would want in Division I track and field. Somebody who can do a whole bunch of different events at a high level. Remember, she was a multi. But professional track and field isn't about that. It's about being the absolute best in one event. Even if you make a final in the hurdles, the high jump, or even in a short sprinting event, if you do not make Team USA, it's almost like you weren't even there in the race. Just watch sprint if you don't believe me. I have no idea what the future for Talia Bonds' career will look like, but what I do know is that the secret is out. Talia Bonds is a hurdler who technically wasn't even supposed to be a hurdler at all, at least in the eyes of most colleges when they were recruiting her. And because of that, she was overlooked by the biggest name schools in Division I. And for the first half of her college career, it even looked like they might have gotten it right, because she really wasn't dominating in a Utah State uniform. But once she got to the Pac-12, she won a championship immediately. She then battled her way to an NCAA championship final, just missing out on a medal, when 3 women in that race would soon go on to be Olympic finalists. And after that moment, she didn't give up on her dream, even though none of the big sponsors decided to go along for the ride. and she competed through an entire season, proving she is one of the world's fastest women. She just happens to compete in the world's fastest nation. I expect her to sign a sponsorship deal soon, if she hasn't already. She might even make Team USA in the future, either for the Worlds or especially for LA in 2028. It might feel like she just came from out of nowhere, and if she does, the announcers might even try to tell you that. But that statement would be a lie, because Talia Bonds is one of the world's fastest women, right now, even though she was never supposed to be this fast to begin with. In the sport of track and field, confidence is everything, because when you win, that is just the moment when everybody else finds out what you already knew to be true, that fast is a lifestyle. Get your Fast is a Lifestyle track and field gear at scarecruiting.com/shop or use the link in the description below. It's a huge support to me and this channel, so I can continue to make you more content like this. And remember, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe.